All right. Hello, everybody. This is Crowd Chat with Cassie Elle. We are back. I think it was last Monday. I was like just recovering from Protospiel Madison, which was awesome. And today I have a really cool guest that's been a member of the Game Crafter community for a while, Jordan Palmer, who is joining me on the show today. Welcome to the show.
Thanks.
I appreciate you being on the show. I am going to ask about, well, right now you have RPG stuff going on, and I'm really excited about talking about, because RPGs are really hard to market. So I was excited just to see the RPG work that you've done in the past. And I had a couple of questions that I wanted to ask about, just like your background in it. Like, how did you start deciding to do RPGs? Like I said, it's really hard. Do you have a background in playing the RPGs for like a long time? Has this been something you've thought about doing for a while?
Yeah, so RPGs, I've been playing since I was like 12. Just a friend of mine introduced me, and I kind of got started from there, and then eventually I found a lot of the more weird games and kind of got interested in designing and tinkering around, and eventually just decided to try and publish one, so.
How long has it been since you decided, from when you decided you were going to publish an RPG to when you actually took the leap into the Kickstarter realm?
Yeah, so around I think 3 years ago, I tried one. It did not succeed. So I learned a lot, and then I basically spent a lot more time building up an audience before I launched, and that was early this year, and that all funded and went successful. So that's basically when I started actually like getting serious about it. It was about early this year.
So growing a crowd is hard in general, and you just mentioned growing a crowd for an RPG, which I think that those Kickstarters are, I mean, I guess board game Kickstarters are hit or miss too sometimes, but I feel like it's just really hard to get people interested in your story. So how did you grow a crowd to get involved in your story? And we're talking about, I'm going to just switch to the website for a second. We're talking about this game here, For the Dungeon. It had 1,200 plus backers, which is a ton of backers, funded in the first 12 hours. So it's got some great art. It's very interesting. So yeah, how did you get a crowd for an RPG?
So the first thing I did was basically I shared it like everywhere before I was ready to publish. So I tried to get as many people as I could play testing it. I mean, I was passing it out basically, the basic rule set at least, to basically anybody I could, just having them play it.
Did
the
you?
Other thing is
Oh, go ahead.
The other thing is I tried to pick a very specific audience. So I specifically targeted, and this was partially just because at the time half my playtesters were part of the college improv group. But we focused the game really heavily on improv and tried to target that crowd.
So did you already have the idea for the game before you decided you wanted to do a publishing Kickstarter? Like, was this already a project of yours over a long period of time, and you said one day, hey, I'm going to turn this into something real?
Yes and no. So originally it was sparked by somebody talking about how nobody wants to play people with just really low stats. And I was like, well, let's what if I made a game? And originally it was a sci-fi game just about being like red shirts in like a Star Trek thing, but the theme eventually evolved into this. And so basically the point at which I switched the theme was when I was going to publish it, but basically all the rules were pretty much the same. And I figured the fantasy had a lot more appeal, and so that's what I went with when I launched. But the game was something that I always wanted to do, but then I switched the theme to when it launched.
Okay, so this kind of was like a passion project to start with okay. You never know if someone's like, you know what, I'm going to publish something, and then they go out and decide to do it, or if it's already something that they have that's a baby and they decide, I'm going to share this baby with the world. You know what I mean? There's always, you never know how someone's start is with their projects.
Yeah, I mean, this one almost started out as a joke, but me and my friends and the people I was playing with just like really, really loved it, and so I was like, well, maybe I got something here. So,
So you mentioned you were part of an improv group. Did you share this game with I'm sorry, it wasn't. You said improv group, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You did you was this like a group project that you had more hands involved? So you kind of had like a little bit of a crowd started already at home, and it went from there.
Sort of. I mean, so the people that I played group RPGs with normally, my group was just all the people from the college RPG club, um, and so it wasn't so much of a group effort, but like those were the people that I was pulling from to test the game and kind of help me build it up in a lot of the play testing. But I had a lot of the solid game before that we started playing it with them. So
Okay. Now you mentioned you shared this game everywhere. Where is everywhere that you would, if you could list them up, where would you say were the top places that were important to share them in?
I mean, social media, obviously. So Facebook, Reddit, Twitter were the big ones.
Did Reddit bring you a lot of return? I've heard, back and forth about Reddit.
Yeah, Reddit is really mixed. This one, it brought me a lot, just because I had kind of built it from like I'm fairly involved in the RPG design Reddits, so that kind of helped to kind of share it around there first. People got a chance to take a look at it and kind of help build a base and see like, okay, see the progression of it.
So that's great. So then you were already part of a community, and that community came when it was time. Did you get a lot of backers from specifically people that knew you, or was there did you see a lot of people sharing your campaign, like kind of on your behalf? I don't know exactly. I know Reddit, sometimes you can share your own stuff, sometimes you can't. So.
Yeah, it depends on where you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Like initially, it was a lot of the people that I knew, and just like the really close circle. But after like the first day, it really just kind of took off, and it was a lot of other people sharing it at that point. So
that's really great. Did you invest? I'm going to actually switch back over to the website to show people some more of the artwork. Did you invest a lot in the art for the book? Was that because that's one of the things to get a crowd is you can get a well-known artist, and I'm just sorry, I'm still scrolling, showing people the art. Was that something that you took into consideration when you were making your Kickstarter?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know if he's necessarily well known, but like I saw the art on Instagram as I was just scrolling through, and I was like, I fell in love with his style, and I knew I wanted him, and so I mean, art to me is one of the biggest things that sells on Kickstarters, is just because I mean the internet now is just very visual, and so having that art to show off, I think, was one of the bigger things that helped.
I'm actually going to show everyone the current Kickstarter. So that was for the dungeon art, and this is the current Kickstarter. Oh, let me go. There it is. It's a magic school role playing game, if everyone can see that. And so this is different art style. I know that this campaign is doing a little different than the other one. Now, the other one had a good handful of backers. And if you look at this campaign right now, we're at like almost 350 backers. But the amount of funding you've gotten from this campaign is almost the same. So I'm curious to know what you've done differently from the first campaign where you had, this following from Reddit and people that were playtesting with you, and now you have this new campaign. It's a lot less people, but about the same funding.
Yeah, so when I was starting out, I knew that a lot of times it takes people a lot of trust to back somebody new who's never put something out before. And so I intentionally made a lot smaller product, a lot smaller book with a lot lower costs. And so it was a lot easier for people to justify, I'll get that, because with shipping it was under $20. And so it was very easy for somebody new coming to the campaign, feeling comfortable risking that amount of money on somebody they hadn't heard.
And we're talking about for the dungeon.
Yeah, for the dungeon.
Right. And
then this campaign, Arcana Academy, is where I had a little bit of a name, and so I felt like I could take on a lot bigger of a product. So I'm releasing it in hardcover with a lot more art, and it's twice as big, and so that's why it's a lot more funding, even though it's less backers. So
Did you do anything differently for the way that you shared the campaign this go around that you think, besides the amount of money that, and the heavier investment that you've made into the campaign, do you think that you've marketed differently that has made any effect on the campaign at all?
yeah, so I hit a lot more on paid advertisement, whereas the previous one I didn't, and that's partially just because I'm in a better place to afford that, and I think that's helped a lot of it, just because my first campaign, it was a lot of people, it was in their like almost an impulse buy, just because of the low price range. I was trying to get in people just to be very, very comfortable with it. And on this one, it is made to compete with a lot of the stuff that's currently on Kickstarter. It's priced basically the same, which is a lot higher than For the Dungeon. And so I knew I was really going to need to sell people on it. And so the audiences between the two campaigns were very different. So I kind of had to build it from scratch, which is why I did a lot more targeted ads this time.
Did you already have your target market set when you did your first campaign?
Yeah, I did. You talking about For the Dungeon?
And then, like you were ready
Yeah.
to go, you knew exactly who you wanted, or did it take a little bit of like through the play testing, that's what revealed itself?
Yeah, well, I was about halfway through, but like I very much started to lean into the improv aspects. And so I definitely started to target people who might have been a little bit more casual in the RPG scene, but like were really into improv and acting and that kind of stuff. And this one is a very different market. This one is more traditional RPG audience. So
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, both themes I think are pretty approachable, but this one does seem like it's going to be a bit, I'm scrolling and taking a look at it. Here, I'm going to share it with everybody. There's a big chunk of information about it, and then, yeah, it's got hardcover with really cool stretch goals. I think it's going to be, I believe it's already funded, so I think it's just going to be continue to grow. Let me just make sure that I asked all the questions that I had about it, because I think that it's really interesting. I haven't heard a lot of people share about how they were already part of a Reddit community, and I think that definitely had a big help. Reddit's really hard, I think, for people to get their foot in the door with. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I've tried, and almost everybody, if you want to post anything, you need to have already commented on other people's stuff. So it's quite an investment. I'm just curious, how much of a time investment have you given into those specific RPG? Have you been in them a long time? Those Reddit subreddits?
yeah. So the RPG design subreddit I've been in for, I mean, pretty much since I started game design. So it was like 4 or 5 years ago.
Wow, okay.
And then, I mean, during the development, obviously, I was a lot more active because I was looking for feedback and stuff. But Reddit is interesting. Like they half the time, they might be supportive. The other half, it's anytime you try and put something up, they're not a fan. So it's really tough. And I think a lot of it is just the initial reception of something determines a lot of how people continue to react with it.
So if you've been a member of the community, is there any advice you would give to somebody that wants to achieve something similar, where they want to have a crowd that they can grow and they can kind of get that rally behind when they're ready to launch? Like, are there any tips and tricks that you would suggest, since you've been a member of the community for so long?
Yeah, I think the first thing, and this is pretty much with anything, is don't be afraid to share it.
Okay.
Like I know a lot of people are worried, like, oh, what if somebody takes my ideas or does that? But the truth is that nobody's gonna be able to put in the effort that you're doing, and so you may as well just share it with as many people as you can, get people excited, get it into their hands. So I mean, this is what a lot of conventions are for, is getting it into their hands and that excitement. But letting people tinker and play and give feedback on your game really helps them to feel like they're a part of it. I mean, especially with the because I did a lot of design folk, a lot of them got to give feedback and see their feedback implemented, and so they very much felt like they were a part of it. So I think the biggest thing is just don't be afraid to get it out there. Like, even if it's bad, like it needs to get better, and no game's going to get better unless it gets tested a lot. And so I think just not being, and it's scary to put something out there for the first time, but that's the first step.
It is definitely scary to put something out for the first time. I have a game on Kickstarter right now, so I totally know what it's like. The first time go around is super scary. I'm trying to see if anyone has any questions. No, just some cool comments. Someone said that the artwork was pretty cool, and someone agreed with you that the art is really important. Let's see. So, I think we covered all of the questions that I had. Did you have anything that I didn't bring up about the crowdfunding and the growth that you've been developing? I think that it's really interesting, the whole RPG thing. I know that you've mentioned the Reddit, but were there any Facebook groups that you already were members of, or did you attend conventions with the game?
I didn't. I was at college pretty much full time, so I wasn't really in a place to attend conventions, and I really wish I had been, because that would have helped a lot, which is part of why I had to just be a part of those communities and share the game as much as I could and let people get it and test it, because I didn't have that. So. All right.
All right. Well, I guess that's all I had for you. It was pretty quick and easy. Oh yeah. Oh, the other question. Besides Reddit, were there any other groups that you found outside of the in-person ones?
Yeah. So obviously, there's a lot of Facebook groups. There's a lot of very specific Facebook groups out there.
Are there ones just for like RPGs or specific types of RPGs? Because I know nothing about that kind of RPG world.
Yeah. So specific types of RPGs. So it was inspired by a specific subset of RPGs, basically called Powered by the Apocalypse games.
Okay.
And so basically one person had created this system and then just said, hey, if anybody wants to hack it, just do whatever you want. And so a lot of people have kind of latched onto that style of game. And so that style has a pretty big following. For the Dungeon was only inspired by it, but Arcane Academy is very much that style of game. So.
Okay, that's pretty cool. I had no idea that there were like these subsets of art. Like I said, I know nothing about RPGs. I know someone says it's an RPG, and I'm like, okay, so you roll dice and you play a game, and you use your imagination. So.
Yeah, 90% of people when they hear RPG just think Dungeons and Dragons. But once you get past that, there's so many different kinds of RPGs out there, and so being able to say hey, this is the niche, this is the style of game that I'm making. A lot of people are like, oh, I love all these other.
What your target market is, because like you said, your market was different from the first two campaigns, and I think that had a huge influence on the direction you took for your crowd growth and your marketing. So definitely knowing, what your target market is, and finding those groups that are willing to give you the back end support. I've interacted with a lot of people that they just go to Kickstarter and they don't try to grow the name and the support ahead of time. So that's definitely something that you had going for you from the Reddit community and from the Game Crafter community too, I hope, because I know you've been a member.
Oh God, yeah. Specifically in For the Dungeon, I had a lot of people who just because I love hanging out at the Game Crafter. I'm in the chat all the time, and just it was awesome to see a lot of the people who I had been interacting with for a long time come out and just really pitch in to support, and it's an awesome feeling.
It is. It's definitely cool, and you not only get support, but you get it's almost like you get emotional support in addition to financial support, because you have these people that want you to succeed, right? It's not just like you're asking them for a favor, but they want to do this for you. So it is. Yeah, it's definitely a cool feeling. All right, well, that's, I guess, like I said, that was my takeaway. Make sure you have your target market, which I've heard over and over again is so important. If you don't know who you're trying to get to be a member of your crowd, then you're just not going to, have a crowd. And knowing what product, I think, actually, that you just brought up, knowing what your product is important. What kind of RPG, knowing what kind of people are going to be playing that, what they've played before, so you can have something that you can relate to them. And and then having your crowd, being supportive. You interact a lot with the Reddit community, and I think that is one thing that a lot of us need to start figuring out. So we shall see. All right, Jordan, thank you so much for being on the show. Is there any way, if anyone wanted to ask you more about just like how you found members of the RPG community, or if they want to learn more about your projects, how they can reach out to you?
Yeah, I'm usually most active on Twitter. Handle is at tabletopcrow. So that's the best way to reach out to me, just because that's what I'm most active in nowadays.
Okay.
So.
And if anybody, I'm going to switch over to the web one more time. If anybody wants to take a look at Jordan's current campaign, it is here. Arcana Academy, a magic school RPG. And that's it for today for Crowd Chat. It was a good episode. I'm really thankful that you had time to come on the show. I know you've been really busy, especially having a live Kickstarter. It doesn't make things easy. So I appreciate you being on the show.
Anytime.
All right, everybody. Until next Monday, I will see you around. This is Cassie on Crowd Chat. Thanks for watching. Bye.